On June 6, 1924, the two men left their high camp and began the final push toward the summit. 2 days later, on June 8th, fellow expedition member Noel Odell caught a brief glimpse of them from a distance. High on the mountain's ridgeline, moving steadily upward. Odell later described them as going strong for the top. That sighting is the last confirmed record of either man alive. Shortly after, cloud cover rolled in and swallowed the upper mountain. Mallory and Irvine never returned to camp. There was no distress call, no visible fall, no trace left behind for the rest of the expedition to find. And at that altitude, with 1920s equipment, there was only so much a search party could realistically attempt. What was left behind was a question that has occupied historians for a century. If they reached the summit before whatever killed them, that changes one of the most well-established facts in mountaineering history. Edmund, Hillary, and Tenzing, Norgay are officially credited as the first to summit Everest in 1953. But if Mallory and Irvine got there 29 years earlier, that title would belong to two men who never made it back down alive to claim it. For 75 years, all researchers had was Odell's brief sighting and one grim certainty. Whatever happened, it happened somewhere above 28,000 feet, inside the stretch of the mountain now known, appropriately, as the death zone. Nobody found either man for the rest of the century. The first real physical clue didn't surface until 1933, when a separate expedition found an ice axe on the mountain, later confirmed as belonging to Irvine. It narrowed the search area slightly. It didn't answer anything. The true turning point came in 1999. A dedicated research expedition was organized, specifically to search the zone near where that ice axe had been recovered decades earlier. Climber Conrad Anker located a body, remarkably preserved by the cold and altitude after 75 years of exposure. It was confirmed to be George Mallory. What the team documented on his body raised more questions than it settled. Mallory was carrying letters from his wife, Ruth, along with several personal effects. Before the expedition, he had told people he intended to leave a photograph of Ruth at the summit if he reached it. That photograph was never recovered from his body. To several researchers who have studied the case closely, that absence is meaningful. If he never made it to the top, there's no clear reason the photo wouldn't still be with him. The camera, however, was the real problem. Mallory and Irvine had been given a Kodak vest pocket camera by fellow expedition member Howard Somerville, specifically to document the summit if they reached it. That camera was not on Mallory's body, which means it's either still with Irvine's remains somewhere on the mountain or lost to the mountain permanently. One additional detail, easy to overlook, may matter more than anything else recovered that day. Mallory's snow goggles were found folded in his pocket, not on his face. Climbers only remove protective goggles in low light conditions. That single detail suggests it was very late in the day, or already dark when Mallory died. It supports a theory that has gained serious traction among mountaineering historians, that he was descending, not still climbing, when the accident occurred. Descending only makes sense if the summit had already been reached. None of this proved Mallory and Irvine stood at the top of Everest. But it made the possibility difficult for serious researchers to dismiss. Irvine's body remained missing, and without Irvine or without that camera, the question that had defined this case for 75 years stayed exactly where it started, unresolved. For another 25 years after Mallory's body was found, Irvine remained entirely missing. Then in September 2024, a National Geographic documentary team working near Everest's north face noticed something emerging from a melting glacier. A boot. Inside it was a preserved foot still inside a sock. Embroidered on that sock were three initials, A.C. Irvine. It was the first physical trace of Andrew Irvine recovered in exactly 100 years. More importantly for this investigation, it establishes for the first time a credible location for where his remains came to rest, which meaningfully narrows the search radius for the one object that could actually resolve this entire case, the missing Kodak camera. If that camera is ever recovered, and if the film inside survived a century sealed in ice, photography preservation experts have noted there's a real, documented chance the images could still be developed. It's not a guarantee, but it's a legitimate possibility, not wishful thinking. Separately, atmospheric physicist Kent Moore uncovered something in old expedition archives that nobody had previously connected to this case. Barometric pressure records from June 1924 show a sharp, well-documented drop in the days immediately before Mallory and Irvine vanished. That kind of pressure collapse is a reliable indicator of a major incoming storm system. Moore compared the pattern directly to the atmospheric conditions behind the 1996 Everest storm that killed 8 climbers in a single day, one of the deadliest events in the mountain's modern history. That gives this story something most century-old mysteries never get. A real, physically documented explanation. Not folklore, not superstition about the mountain. An actual verified storm system. Arriving in the exact window 2 men disappeared above. 28,000 feet, with no supplemental oxygen reserves left and no way to outrun what was coming. Here is where the case currently stands. One body found in 1999, raising legitimate doubt about whether the summit was reached. One boot found in 2024, narrowing the search for the one artifact that could finally settle it. And one storm buried in paper records for nearly a century. That may explain exactly why neither man made it home. So let's return to where this started. What was actually found on Mallory's body? Letters from his wife, and snow goggles folded away in his pocket instead of on his face. A detail that points toward a late descent rather than an ongoing ascent. What was missing matters just as much. No camera and no photograph of his wife that he had planned to leave at the summit. Why did the 2024 discovery change the direction of this case? Because it's the first confirmed trace of Irvine in 100 years, and it meaningfully narrows down where that missing camera may still be resting. And why could a single camera still rewrite Everest's official history? Because if it's ever recovered, and if the film survived, it would be the closest thing to definitive proof that Mallory and Irvine reached the top of the world. 29 years before anyone else was given credit for it. Do you think they reached the summit before the mountain took them? Or do you think the storm reached them first? I'm genuinely curious what you think happened up there. So leave it in the comments. If you're drawn to mysteries where the evidence keeps almost closing the case and never quite finishes the job, subscribe. This channel is built entirely around stories exactly like this one.